Darragh O'Brien TD.
Just, Minister, I noticed, I was watching you intently when my colleague Deputy McSharry was putting forward his view, and indeed the view of our party on this bill, and you seem to cringe through most of it. And I think because you yourself, as a Minister at the Department of Justice, are embarrassed about this piece of legislation and where this has come. I think you are, actually, to be honest, and if you're being very, very honest about it, you'd admit that. And at least... What? Well, not bad at reading it, actually, to be honest with you. You do look most uncomfortable there. What I would say as well is, at least you fronted up and turned up here today. Look at the benches behind you. No one. All the supporters, we're here. All the supporters in government who think this is. Oh, I'll get onto the Sinn Féin in a minute. But all the people who believe this is an important, urgent piece of legislation, and they're not here. Now, I would genuinely, I don't, in any way, shape, or form. This is not a criticism of you, but Minister Flanagan, the new Minister for Justice, should be here to listen to the contributions. I actually think the reason why Minister Flanagan isn't because he doesn't believe in this piece of legislation himself. That the previous Minister for Justice was browbeaten at Cabinet by Minister Ross, and we'll get to him in a minute, because he should really just concentrate trying to do something in transport and not stick his oar in the justice area, because I think he's proved over the last number of months how little he actually knows on the topic. But you know, it is telling that you're the only member of Fine Gael here. We've no member of Cabinet here. We've no member from Sinn Féin here either. And I suppose when I looked at the legislation, but particularly looked at who's supporting it, I suppose one of the reasons why you would actually think we shouldn't support it, because when you're looking at changing the judicial system and the structures that have served this state, in my view, really well since independence. Is anyone to tell me that there has been an issue with the probity of our judicial system? Has there been an issue with the independence of our judicial system? Has there been ever an issue, or is there an issue with the standard and the quality of the people that have been appointed? I don't think so. I think actually the judiciary, we should be very, very proud of the fact that through very difficult times since independence, and particularly difficult times right the way through the foundation of this state, through the Second World War, through the terrorist campaign perpetrated in this country by many of the members who actually couldn't be bothered to be here today of the provisional Sinn Féin movement. Many of these people who actually tried to... Oh, I think it's relevant, because I tell you why it's relevant, Cahirley, and thanks for your intervention, is because Sinn Féin are supporting a piece of legislation here that's going to fundamentally change how judges are appointed in this country. For many, many years, Sinn Féin and many of the members who aren't here today, but many Sinn Féin TDs, they're probably watching on the monitor, so I'd say I bet you in about 5 minutes a couple of them will scuttle into the room here and sit down and take their benches, because they'll be told by the higher-ups in their own party, the unelected people, to get in here and show face. The reality is that many members of Sinn Féin didn't even recognise the Irish courts or the Irish judicial system, or indeed the Irish state, a short few years ago. And these are the people that this government are hoping will support this flawed piece of legislation. People who actually bullied juries, who ensured that we had a special criminal court here, that there was no...
Deputy, I'd ask you again just to deal with the content.
Oh, well, I think I am, because...
the bill. No, and not make comments.
Well,
I would ask you just to deal with
the
content of the bill.
I think I can stand over the fact that members of the provisional IRA...
But we're not talking about...
well, I am.
Because... Deputy, as Chair, I'm being very lenient.
Oh, no, and I respect you, Chair.
There's a debate here in relation to the Judicial Appointments Bill.
Absolutely.
If we could, please, I'm asking you again.
Okay, well, maybe we'll put it this way. If we look back historically at how our judiciary, in the context of that I raised these points, is that our judiciary operated and continues to operate in a very independent manner, and has stood up to threats to its independence. Let's put it that way. Threats from criminals, from criminal gangs, from terrorists. But they did. They did.
I'm asking you again. You have 15 minutes left to deal with the judicial appointments.
Well, I'm going to. But why I'm saying this is that when you have a situation whereby I understand that some of the amendments that Sinn Féin are insisting upon at committee stage and are working through would actually mean that some of the people who may have in the past tried to tamper with juries and with trials and tried to influence courts in Ireland and didn't even recognise courts in Ireland could actually serve on this lay committee themselves. That can happen, Minister, and that will happen because of the deal that Shane Ross and your government and the Fine Gael government have done with Sinn Féin, who are absent here today, for their support of this bill. That is a worry to me because I actually value our judiciary. I value the independence of our courts, and that's a really serious thing. I can tell you, if you go back to the trial of the late Sean McStephon, which was the last jury trial in Ireland, that the jury themselves, the jury trial, terrorist jury trial, and after that trial, the non-jury courts were brought in, that whole jury was got to. The whole jury was got to at the time in the early 1970s, as we got to by many of the people who sit in this house here. So that's what we're dealing. So that's actually what we're. No, let's be fair. That's what we're dealing.
Deputy O'Brien, you're making comments.
But that's what we're dealing with.
No, I'm asking you to take back that comment now.
I can't, because it's true.
Deputy O'Brien, you can't make comments like that in the chamber. You can't make comments about TDs who are not.
I didn't mention any specific TD. What I mentioned.
You're referring to people who. I'm asking you not
people
to.
Within.
Deputy O'Brien, listen to me.
Okay, well,
I don't want to make a ruling that's going to stop this debate.
Okay.
Please. Deal with what's here.
Okay. Well, what I will say, I think all of us know, and I don't mean to make your job more difficult today, Cahirley, is simply that there were people in this country during the course of the armed conflict, if you want to call it that, over the past 40 years, who tried to circumvent the judicial system, tried to undermine the judicial system, undermine our juries, and tried to do that on a regular basis. And actually many people who didn't even recognise the courts in this country. I think that's all factual. I think there's very few people that could disagree with that. And many of those happen to come from one political party in this state. So I think we know that, but that is the political party that's actually supporting this Fine Gael and this Shane Ross's legislation. And I do think it's deeply flawed, to be honest with you. I do earnestly believe that our judiciary has served us very well, that our courts have served us very well, and that we don't need to take a wrecking ball to the legal and judicial structures of this state that have served us so well since independence. And I'd love to know, where does this vendetta and this crusade from Shane Ross come from? What's the genesis of this? What's the reason for this? Who's advised Minister Ross? Who's talking in his ear and telling him that our court system needs to be turned upside down? I don't believe that he's made it up himself. Now, he may have some, and I would agree, and our party agrees, that their changes are required and certain reforms are required. But downgrading the position of the Chief Justice to simply a position of a member of an advisory committee, it would be like akin to asking the Taoiseach to serve on an Oireachtas committee here or on a government committee and tell the Taoiseach that he shouldn't chair it. What's that about? Do we not trust the judiciary? I do. But what this legislation tells me, and this is what fundamentally gets to the real issue that I have, is that this government and the members of Cabinet don't trust the Irish judicial system. That's what it tells me, really clearly. Because why would you support this piece of flawed legislation if that was not the case? And I would love the Minister for Justice to be here today and to actually respond and to tell me and to list out all the concerns that he and your government have with the judicial appointments in the past. List out the judges that you have a problem with, if you want, but then we'll be told separation of powers. Absolutely. Agree with separation of powers, 500%. But this piece of legislation, in my view, and in my party's view, is actually undermining that the position of separation of powers between the Oireachtas and the judiciary because of the debate that's happened in the last number of weeks, both publicly and in here in the House, led by the chief cheerleader, Shane Ross. Now, I'd love Shane Ross to actually concentrate on the job he's supposed to do in the Department of Transport. He is the Minister for Transport, Tourism and Sport the last time I checked. Now, it's actually hard to figure that, but because I tell you, over the years since he's been there, and I know Shane very well, I mean no disrespect, but I look at the performance of the output from his department. Basically, what Minister Ross has done in 12 months is he's produced a new timetable for Dublin Bus. That's what he's done. That's all he's done. Swear to God, it's gas. You think, I'm a commuter. I come from a commuter constituency, Dublin Fingal, that people are trying to get in and out of Dublin every single day, travelling on overpacked darts, on underfunded rail systems. And what does Shane Ross do? Absolutely nothing. He's called for a second capital review. This follows on from Minister Paschal Donoghue. The best thing in the Department of Transport to do when you don't want to do anything is seek a review. And a capital review. So Paschal Donoghue did it. Shane Ross takes over. He said, you know what, I'll have another one as well. So projects like Metro North, Shane Ross should be concentrating on. Projects like Dart Underground, Shane Ross should be concentrating on. Projects like the future expansion and development of Dublin Airport, Shane Ross should be concentrating on. I have actually met with the Minister in relation to the new runway developments at Dublin Airport, and I actually thanked him for meeting with a group of residents a number of months ago on this very issue. But the Minister is a statutory instrument that's prepared and sitting in his office, I believe, for months now, in relation to the proposal to make the Irish Aviation Authority the competent body to assess the issue of night flights and planning restrictions at Dublin Airport. I would have thought that for the 5th busiest airport in Europe, there's a relevance here, because Shane Ross is, if he didn't spend so much time in the Department of Justice...
You're stretching the relevance now, please.
Well, I'll get back to Sinn Féin now if you don't let me talk about Dublin Airport.
Can we get back to the judicial appointment?
Well, I am. I tell you what, because if Shane Ross didn't spend all day, every day...
You might revert to the relevant section where that is.
I guarantee you I will now in a second. What I say to you is that your government and the government is charged with governing this state and the Republic of Ireland, and looking after the welfare of the state, and actually ensuring that jobs are created and that people's livelihoods are protected, and that the country develops and develops appropriately. So in that context, Minister Ross, the crusader, the anti-judicial crusader that he is, he spent half his time in the Department of Justice when he has a piece of legislation that I and residents in my constituency of Dublin Fingal urgently need to see, in relation to how the airport is going to develop and how that's going to impact on my area of North Dublin, and how that should be. He's had it for months. And that is about setting up the Irish Aviation Authority as the competent authority, and that we can assess things like unrestricted night flights, how that will affect local residents and communities in that area. That's what he should be responsible for. Seriously, it is. He should look after his brief.
Can we deal with the bill?
I'll get back to that. But he should look after his brief, and he's not doing that. So maybe when you're talking to him, Minister Stanton, or when you meet him, because I haven't seen him around in quite a while, you might actually ask him and just prompt him to focus on the job that he's supposed to be doing, the area of responsibility that he is supposed to have. Now, looking at how this flawed piece of legislation could become law, it requires a majority support in this House. That support's drawn from Fine Gael, from certain right-wing independents like Shane Ross, from the Sinn Féin, provisional Sinn Féin, and
this cannot continue now. You can't keep making comments.
What?
About provisional Sinn Féin.
Why not?
I'm not allowing you to do that. I'm sorry, Deputy O'Brien, I'm not allowing you to do that.
Okay, from Sinn Féin.
Sinn Féin are elected TDs.
Yeah, they are, absolutely. Absolutely. So from Sinn Féin and from the Treble A PBP, or Solidarity as they're called now. So Mick Barry and Paul Murphy and Richard Boyd Barrett and Ruth Coppinger and others are supporting, and they said they were going to give conditional support to this bill, like the conditional support and respect that they give our courts. Because don't forget...
Deputy O'Brien, honestly, this is about the fourth interruption I've had.
I'll tell you why it's conditional, if you let me conclude.
I will let you conclude, but you're straying off. If you could deal with the judicial and stop making comments that are not relevant at all in relation to the debate.
I actually believe they are, because these are the people that are going to pass this legislation.
I'm afraid I'm in the chair and you're not going to make comments.
No, well, I am actually. Sorry, because with all due respect, Caherly, I tell you why. I tell you why, because the Solidarity Party are supporting this bill, okay? And let's get back to the bill. They're supporting the Judicial Appointments Commission.
If you could get back to the bill. Solidarity are entitled to make their contributions, as are Sinn Féin.
Yeah,
absolutely. If you could, please.
Absolutely.
There are 5 minutes.
I'm going to...
fair references to us in their contributions.
So so what I'm
without interruption.
The context that I'm going to refer to this is that in the recent Jobstown trial, which I'm allowed comment on, I believe I am, and that is a trial in one of our courts, which relates to, the trial was presided over by a judge, which is relevant to judicial appointments and relevant to the Judicial Appointments Commission Bill 2017 being put forward by this government. Solidarity said publicly and held meetings across this country, and particularly in Dublin, that they believed the jury selection was unfair, was unconstitutional and was illegal. And they actually questioned the independence and the relevance of those juries. Now, they did that and they held public meetings all over this city, big posters up all over Dublin saying unfair jury selection, all of these things. There was going to be a big divvy up, and that there was some conspiracy in our courts. This is what they said: a conspiracy in our courts and in our judicial system that was stacked against them. That's what they said. And that is a very serious charge from members of the Oireachtas and members of the Dáil. They said that. Then what happens? When the jury of their peers acquits them of the charges put in front of them, that's all forgotten about. So that jury was grand. Absolutely. That was fine. But yet they campaigned, and many would say, that intimidated the jury and intimidated members of the jury by sending live tweets out during those court cases.
Deputy O'Brien.
Many would say that.
Deputy O'Brien, I'd ask you to take that withdrawal.
I won't, because
Deputy O'Brien, I would ask you to withdraw that.
Many would say, and it was said on radio earlier in the week, that people felt that members of that jury were actually may have felt uncomfortable. I will withdraw the remark in relation to intimidation.
Thank you.
I will withdraw that.
Deputy O'Brien, at this point you've withdrawn it. I accept that. But please, there are 3 minutes 16 seconds left. If you could deal with the bill, please.
I think
and if you're going to make references, please show me where they're relevant within the debate.
Well, it's a second stage speech. I'm not at committee stage, and I'm not going through each section of the bill. Cahirley, I've been interrupted umpteen times. I believe I'm entitled to make the points that I have made. I've said nothing. I have said nothing that I believe is out of order, and people can actually judge that for themselves. What I simply said was that in the recent Jobstown trial is that questions by the Solidarity Party and campaigns were made against and about the selection and the jury selection. That's happened, okay? You can't dispute that, right?
You've
that happened. No, I didn't withdraw that. So that happened, and then what happens? What happens then is they're acquitted, and nothing more is said about it. That's grand, absolutely. So what I'm saying to you, Cahirley, is this is the type of member, and these are the people who give conditional support to our judicial system, who are supporting these changes being proposed by this government, and that's the group of people who you're depending on to actually get this flawed legislation through the Dáil. And I actually think that is seriously worrying, because what you're doing and what this government are doing is taking a wrecking ball to the judicial system here on the basis of a personal crusade by Shane Ross, who can't be here again today. Maybe he is in the Department of Transport doing what he should be doing, supported by Sinn Féin and the Solidarity Party. That's what we have here. So I think, and I would ask the Minister and I would ask any other member to list out and say it in the House here and now, judicial appointments that they felt were incorrect, judges that they have felt have been corrupted or who haven't actually done the job they're supposed to be doing, or haven't actually upheld the laws of this country. And because I believe the judiciary has served this state very well. Others may not, because of the DNA within their own political movements, who have late in the day maybe come around to actually recognising the courts themselves, to recognising the state itself. This is what we're talking about. So there are some people in their own DNA who actually have no regard or respect for our judicial system. And they're the people who are supporting Minister Flanagan's bill, well, really Minister Ross's bill. And I really think government should have another look at that very clearly and should go back and say, really, are we doing the right thing here? I put it to you that you're not. That, as I said, you're bringing forward some very, very serious changes to process a judicial system that has served this state well, against many threats to it over the years, many, many threats perpetrated by many different terrorist groups and political parties. And that's a fact.
Deputy O'Brien, thank you.